Marcus Chen had exactly 9 minutes to catch his connecting flight. His shoes squeaked against the polished airport floor as he navigated through Terminal D, dodging travelers who seemed determined to walk at half his speed. The conference in Chicago had been exhausting. 3 days of presentations, networking that felt more like performance art, and sleeping on hotel pillows that might as well have been filled with rocks. His phone buzzed. A text from his son. "Jamie, Dad, did you remember to get me that architecture book you promised?" Marcus winced. He'd completely forgotten. Between meetings and the disaster of a pitch to potential investors who'd smiled with their mouths but not their eyes, the book had slipped his mind entirely. He typed back quickly, "I'll order it tonight, buddy. Promise. Be home soon." The guilt sat heavy in his chest. Since the divorce 18 months ago, he'd been trying to be everything to Jamie. Father, mother, provider, friend. Some days he felt like he was succeeding. Most days he felt like he was drowning in good intentions and broken promises. Gate D47. 8 minutes now. Marcus picked up his pace, his laptop bag bouncing against his hip. That's when he noticed her. An older woman sat in one of those uncomfortable airport chairs near Gate D31, and something about her posture stopped Marcus in his tracks. She wasn't just sitting. She was radiating distress. Her hands moved in deliberate patterns, gestures that Marcus recognized immediately. She was signing, asking for help, and person after person walked past her without so much as a glance. A businessman in an expensive suit strode by, absorbed in his phone call. A mother herding 3 children rolled past with a stroller, too harried to notice. A flight attendant hurried by, focused on whatever crisis awaited at the next gate. The woman's hands moved again, more urgently this time. Her eyes, deep brown and suddenly looking much older than her face suggested, scanned the crowd with increasing desperation. Marcus checked his phone. 7 minutes. He should keep walking. He had a son waiting at home. Promised to keep. A flight that wouldn't wait. But Jamie's voice echoed in his head from a conversation they'd had just last week. "Dad, Mrs. Rodriguez at school says that being a good person isn't about the big stuff. It's about the small moments when nobody's watching." Marcus's feet changed direction before his brain fully caught up with the decision. "Excuse me," Marcus said, then immediately felt foolish. If she was deaf, speaking wouldn't help. He set his bags down and signed carefully. "Hello, I see you need help. How can I assist?" The transformation on the woman's face was instantaneous. Her eyes filled with tears. Not sad tears, but the kind that come from profound relief. Her hands flew up, signing rapidly. "Thank you, oh thank you. I've been trying to get someone's attention for 20 minutes. My flight. They changed the gate and I don't know where to go and my phone isn't working and I..." Marcus held up a hand gently. "Slow down. Take a breath. I'm here now. My name is Marcus. What's yours?" The woman composed herself, wiping her eyes. Catherine Hartwell. I'm trying to get to Philadelphia. Flight 2156. Okay, Catherine. Let me check." Marcus pulled out his phone and quickly searched the flight information. His own flight now had 6 minutes until boarding. "Your flight moved to gate A18. Boarding started 5 minutes ago." Catherine's face went pale. "Gate A18? But that's across the terminal. I'll never make it." "You will," Marcus signed firmly, "because I'm going to take you there. Come on." He helped her gather her belongings. A leather carry-on, a purse with a delicate chain, reading glasses that had fallen to the floor. Then they started moving, Marcus keeping one hand free to sign while navigating the crowd. "How long have you been sitting there?" he asked as they walked. "Almost half an hour," Catherine signed back. "At first I thought someone would notice. Then I hoped. Then I just felt invisible." The word hit Marcus like a punch. Invisible. He knew that feeling, had watched Jamie experience it more times than he could count. Jamie was 12 now, had been deaf since birth due to a genetic condition. Marcus had learned American Sign Language when Jamie was diagnosed, had thrown himself into it with the same intensity he brought to everything else in life. But learning the language had been the easy part. The hard part was watching the world treat his brilliant, funny, creative son like he wasn't quite there, like he was invisible. They reached the moving walkway and stepped on. Catherine was breathing easier now, her panic subsiding. "Why do you know sign language?" she asked. "If you don't mind sharing." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "My son, Jamie. He's 12. He was born deaf." Understanding bloomed across Catherine's face. "Then you know what it's like. I've seen it happen to him," Marcus signed, his hands moving with barely controlled emotion. "People look right through him. Like because he can't hear, he can't understand. Like because he's silent, he has nothing to say. But Jamie," he paused, searching for words. "Jamie sees things other people miss. He notices patterns in raindrops, finds beauty in silence, thinks in ways that make me realize how limited my hearing has made me." Catherine reached out and touched his arm. "You're a wonderful father. Not every parent learns. Not every parent tries. I had to try. He's my whole world." They stepped off the moving walkway and turned down another corridor. Gate A18 was visible now, and Marcus could see people lined up to board. "Your flight," Catherine signed suddenly. "You're going to miss your flight." Marcus checked his phone. 3 minutes. He looked at Catherine, then at the gate ahead, then back at Catherine. "I'll catch another one," he said. "But your family." "My son taught me something," Marcus signed. "He taught me that being a good person isn't about the big gestures. It's about the small moments when you choose to see someone everyone else ignores." They reached gate A18 just as a final boarding call echoed through the terminal. Marcus checked Catherine's boarding pass, confirmed she was in the right place, and turned to the gate agent to explain the situation. The agent, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, immediately understood and waved Catherine through. Before she went down the jetway, Catherine grabbed Marcus's hand. She pressed something into his palm, a business card, and signed with both urgency and profound gratitude. "Please, call my daughter. Tell her what you did. She needs to know there are still good people in the world." Marcus looked down at the card. Catherine Hartwell, mother of Dr. Sarah Hartwell, Director, Hartwell Institute of Inclusive Design. His breath caught. He knew that name. Every architect in North America knew that name. The Hartwell Institute was legendary. A research and design firm that had revolutionized accessible architecture and won international awards for their groundbreaking work. "Catherine, I don't need." "Please," she interrupted. "For me." Sarah grew up watching me struggle. She built her entire career trying to change the world for people like us. She needs to know about people like you. The gate agent called Catherine's name. She squeezed Marcus's hand one more time, signed "Thank you," with a depth of feeling that transcended language, and disappeared down the jetway. Marcus stood there, the business card in his hand, as an announcement for his own flight's final boarding echoed through the terminal. He'd missed it. He pulled out his phone and called Jamie. "Dad? Aren't you supposed to be on a plane?" Marcus smiled at the concern in his son's hands. Jamie was video calling, signing as he spoke through the phone's accessibility features. "I missed my flight, buddy. I'll catch the next one. I'll be home later tonight." "Why did you miss it? What happened?" Marcus explained about Catherine, about helping her find her gate, about the choice he'd made. As he signed, he watched Jamie's expression change from confusion to understanding to something that looked an awful lot like pride. "Dad, that's exactly what Mrs. Rodriguez was talking about. You saw someone everyone else ignored." "I learned from the best," Marcus signed back. "Did you get her daughter's number?" Marcus looked at the business card again. "She gave me a card. For her daughter who runs the Hartwell Institute." Jamie's eyes went wide. "The Hartwell Institute? Dad, they designed the new community center downtown. The one where I take my art classes. It's the best building I've ever been in." They actually designed it for people like me instead of just adding accessibility stuff later. Really? Dad, you have to call her. Not because of who she is, but because that lady's daughter needs to know what you did. She needs to know people like you exist. Sometimes Marcus thought 12-year-olds were wiser than people 3 times their age. For days later, Marcus was at his drafting table in his small home office, working on a design that felt uninspired and flat, when his phone rang. "Mr. Chen? This is Dr. Sarah Hartwell. I believe you helped my mother at O'Hare Airport." Marcus nearly dropped his pencil. "I did. Did she make it home safely?" "She did, thanks to you." Sarah's voice was professional but warm. "Mr. Chen, my mother told me what you did. Not just helping her find her gate, but what you said to her. About silence. About your son." Marcus waited, his heart beating faster. "I grew up watching people treat my mother like she was invisible," Sarah continued. "I built my career, my entire institute, around the idea that the world should work for everyone, not just the majority. What you did at that airport, most people don't do that. They just don't. I only did what anyone should do. But they don't. That's exactly the point." Sarah paused. "Mr. Chen, my mother also mentioned you work in architecture. I looked up your portfolio. You have a remarkable eye for spatial relationships and human-centered design." "Thank you. I'd like to discuss a potential collaboration. We're designing a new school, an integrated facility where deaf and hearing children learn together, not as separate groups with deaf children included, but as equal partners from the foundation up. When my mother told me about you, about why you know sign language, about your perspective as Jamie's father," she paused. "Mr. Chen, I think you might be exactly what this project needs. Would you be willing to come to Boston to discuss it?" Marcus looked around his office, at the designs that weren't quite working, at the bills stacked on his desk, at Jamie's school photo smiling at him from its frame. "When?" he asked. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the glass and steel offices of the Hartwell Institute in downtown Boston, trying not to feel completely overwhelmed. The space was extraordinary. Not just beautiful, but thoughtfully beautiful. Visual alert systems were integrated so seamlessly into the design that you'd think they were art installations. The lighting was perfect, bright enough to see signs clearly, positioned to avoid shadows or backlighting. Meeting rooms had glass walls with strategic placement of visual barriers for privacy. Everything about the space said, "This was designed for you," rather than "We made space for you." "Mr. Chen." He turned. Sarah Hartwell was younger than he'd expected, mid-30s, with her mother's elegant features and eyes that radiated both intelligence and warmth. She wore a simple navy dress and had her dark hair pulled back in a professional but effortless style. What struck Marcus most was when she smiled and signed, "Welcome, I'm Sarah. Thank you so much for coming." Her signing was fluid, natural, native. Not the careful practiced movements of someone who'd learned it as a second language, but the easy grace of someone who'd grown up bilingual. Something in Marcus's chest loosened. "Thank you for inviting me," he signed back. "Your office is incredible." "Thank you. We designed it ourselves." She grinned. "Obviously. Can I get you coffee? Tea?" "Coffee would be great." They settled in a conference room with a view of Boston Harbor. What was supposed to be a 1-hour meeting stretched into 4. Sarah spread architectural plans across the table. "Here's what we have so far, but I'm not satisfied with it. It's good, technically excellent, but it's not right." Marcus studied the plans. She was right. They were excellent. Clean lines, smart use of space, all the required accessibility features properly integrated. But something was missing. "May I?" He gestured to a pencil. "Please." For the next hour, they worked together. Marcus sketching modifications, Sarah adding her ideas, both falling into an easy collaboration that felt less like a job interview and more like two people discovering they spoke the same language, finding they could create poetry together. "Here," Marcus said, pointing to the main learning commons. This is designed for hearing students with deaf accommodations added. But what if we flipped it? What if we designed it from the beginning for visual communication? What do you mean? Sign language requires clear sight lines. If you can't see someone's hands, you can't understand them. So learning spaces for sign language need different configurations. Maybe circular or U-shaped seating instead of traditional rows. Different lighting strategies. Color contrast on walls so hands are always visible. And instead of rows of desks facing forward, which works for auditory learning but not visual, maybe clusters that allow students to see each other easily. Sarah leaned forward, her eyes bright. Keep going. And what if we used sound itself differently? Traditional schools are designed to control sound, to minimize echoes and outside noise. But for deaf students, sound dampening isn't the priority. So we can use those resources elsewhere. Maybe textured surfaces that provide information through touch. Visual wayfinding that's integrated into the architecture, not stuck on as signage. Real-time captioning systems built into the walls themselves, not mounted on stands as an afterthought. Yes, Sarah breathed. That's exactly. I've been trying to articulate this, but couldn't figure out how to achieve it. They looked at each other across the table, and something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, the peculiar intimacy of being truly understood by someone who gets it. Most architects, Sarah signed, switching fully to ASL, design for the majority and then modify for others. They treat accessibility like a checklist, a legal requirement. But I want to create spaces that start from a different premise, that understand different isn't deficit. Marcus felt something catch in his throat. That's what I've been trying to do. When I design now, I think about how Jamie experiences space. What he needs. What would make him feel not just accommodated, but celebrated. Tell me about him, Sarah said gently. So he did. He told her about Jamie's diagnosis at 6 months old, about his ex-wife Sarah who tried to cope but ultimately couldn't handle what she saw as their son's limitations, about the custody battle that had ended with Marcus as primary guardian and Sarah visiting twice a month when her new life in California permitted. He told her about learning to braid Jamie's hair from YouTube videos, about mastering the art of making teenager-appropriate lunches that were also exciting enough to compete with cafeteria pizza, about the 3 a.m. fears that he wasn't enough, that Jamie deserved better, that he was failing. And he told her about the victories, about Jamie's first art show at school, where his piece, a mixed media installation about hearing color, had won first place, about the time Jamie had interpreted a heated parent-teacher conference for another deaf family who just moved to town, sitting there at 12 years old with the poise of someone twice his age, about the way Jamie saw beauty in things Marcus had never noticed, the geometry of frost on windows, the rhythm of traffic lights changing, the whole visual poetry of a world experienced without sound. He sounds extraordinary, Sarah signed. He is, Marcus replied simply. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, my mother is extraordinary too, but she spent her whole life fighting to be seen. I built this institute because I was tired of watching her have to fight. I wanted to create spaces where people like her, people like your Jamie, didn't have to fight to exist, where the world was built for them from the beginning. That's beautiful, Marcus said. It's business, Sarah replied with a slight smile. Good accessible design benefits everyone. But yes, it's also deeply personal. Everything I build for my mother. Everything. They talked until the sun started setting over the harbor, painting the water in shades of orange and gold. They talked about design philosophy and childhood memories, about the deaf community and the ways the hearing world still failed it, about dreams and frustrations and the persistent hope that change was possible. When Marcus finally left, promising to send detailed design revisions within the week, Sarah walked him to the elevator. This was supposed to be a consultation, she said, smiling. I think it turned into something else, Marcus replied. A collaboration? I hope so, if you'll have me. I think, Sarah said carefully, that this could be the beginning of something important. The project, I mean. But also, she trailed off, then signed something quickly that Marcus almost missed. Also maybe something else. Over the next 4 months, Marcus flew to Boston twice a month. Jamie stayed with Marcus's sister during these trips, though increasingly Jamie would video call during Marcus's Boston evenings, and Sarah would appear in the frame. It started casually, Sarah stopping by Marcus's hotel to drop off revised plans, staying to say hi to Jamie. But it became routine. Jamie started asking, "Is Dr. Hartwell there?" Before Marcus even connected the calls. The school project consumed them both. Marcus found himself working harder than he ever had, driven not just by the paycheck, though the Hartwell Institute paid better than any firm he'd worked for, but by the vision. This wasn't just another building. This was a statement, a declaration that the world could be different. They designed classrooms where deaf and hearing children could learn together seamlessly. A cafeteria where visual communication was as easy as verbal. A theater where ASL performances and spoken word could share the same stage with equal prominence. A library where silence wasn't enforced but celebrated. Where visual storytelling had the same weight as written word. One evening, Sarah sent Jamie a package. Inside was a sketchbook and a note. "I hear you're an artist. The school needs student input. Would you help us design the art studio?" Jamie's response was immediate and enthusiastic. A series of detailed sketches showing natural lighting angles, movable walls for displaying work, floors that could handle spilled paint, and carefully placed mirrors so students could see each other signing while they worked. "He's brilliant," Sarah signed to Marcus during their next meeting. Jamie's drawings spread across the conference table. "Look at this idea about the mirrors. It solves a problem I didn't even realize we had. How do you maintain visual communication when students are focused on their work?" Marcus looked at the drawings, at his son's careful work being taken seriously by one of the best design institutes in the country, and felt something in his chest expand almost painfully. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for seeing him, for seeing all of this." "Thank you," Sarah replied, "for seeing my mother, for stopping when everyone else kept walking." That night, after a long day of design work, Sarah invited Marcus to dinner at her home. A beautiful brownstone in Beacon Hill that managed to be both elegant and warm, filled with books and art and the comfortable clutter of real life. Catherine was there, and when she saw Marcus, she signed enthusiastically. "The kind man from the airport. Sarah talks about you constantly." Over a meal that Catherine insisted on preparing, Marcus watched the two women interact. The easy shorthand of their signs, the way Sarah anticipated her mother's needs without hovering, the obvious deep love between them. It reminded him of his relationship with Jamie, and something in his heart recognized home. After dinner, Catherine excused herself, and Sarah led Marcus out to a small balcony overlooking the street. "Can I tell you something?" Sarah asked. "Of course. After my mother came home from that trip, after she told me what you did, how you stopped, how you saw her, she said something I haven't been able to forget." Sarah looked at him, her eyes reflecting the street lights. She said, "That man sees people, really sees them, not just notices them, but sees them. I didn't do anything special. That's exactly what makes it special. You did something that should be ordinary but isn't." She paused. "I didn't understand what she meant until I met you, until I watched you talk about Jamie and work on these designs and care so deeply about creating spaces where people feel seen." Marcus's heart was beating faster now. "I see you too," he said quietly. "I see someone who built an institute on the principle that everyone deserves dignity. Someone who speaks her mother's language as naturally as her own. Someone who understands that accessibility isn't accommodation. It's respect and justice." "Marcus, I see someone," he continued, "that I can't stop thinking about. Someone I fly across the country to see twice a month, and it stopped being just about the project a long time ago." Sarah stepped closer. "When did it stop being just about the project?" I think it stopped being just about the project the moment you greeted me in sign language and I realized I wasn't alone anymore, that there was someone else who understood. The kiss was soft, tentative, full of questions and promises. When they pulled apart, Sarah was smiling. I think, she said, we should probably tell Jamie. Marcus laughed. I think Jamie already knows. 2 months later, Marcus brought Jamie to Boston during summer break. Jamie was nervous. Marcus could tell by the way his hands fidgeted, signing random words to himself as they rode the taxi to Sarah's office. What if she doesn't like me in person? Jamie signed. Video calls are different. She already likes you. You've been working together for months. But Dad, what if I'm weird? What if I mess up signs or… Jamie. Marcus waited until his son looked at him. You're not weird. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. And Sarah already knows that. When they arrived at the Hartwell Institute, Sarah was waiting in the lobby. She crouched down to Jamie's level, even though he was almost as tall as she was now, and signed, Hi, Jamie. I'm so happy to finally meet you in person. Your art studio designs are being built right now. Want to come see? Jamie looked at Marcus for permission. Marcus nodded. Jamie turned back to Sarah and signed shyly, Really? Really? Come on. They spent the afternoon at the construction site. Jamie wore a safety vest and hard hat, walking through the partially finished school, seeing his ideas transformed into reality. Every few minutes, he'd tug on Marcus's arm and sign, Dad, look, that's my mirror idea. Or, Dad, that's the lighting I suggested. Later, at dinner with Catherine joining them, Jamie sat between Marcus and Sarah, signing animatedly about his art projects and his friends and the camp he was attending next month. Catherine watched from across the table, her eyes warm, occasionally adding comments that made Jamie laugh. As they were leaving, Jamie tugged on Sarah's sleeve. When she looked down, he signed carefully, Are you my dad's girlfriend? Marcus felt his face heat, but Sarah just smiled and signed back, I'd like to be, if that's okay with you. Jamie considered this seriously. Then he signed, Can you be my friend too? Not just Dad's girlfriend, but my friend. I would love that, Sarah replied. I already think of you as my friend. Jamie nodded, satisfied. Then he added, Good, because Dad smiles more when he talks about you. And he needs to smile more. He works too hard and worries too much. Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought, as Sarah reached over and squeezed his hand. 8 months after that November day at O'Hare Airport, Marcus stood in the completed school with Jamie's hand in his, Sarah beside him, and Catherine sitting in the front row of the assembly space. The building was extraordinary. All light and space and thoughtful design. Every element carefully considered for the people who would use it, not as an afterthought, not as accommodation, but as the foundational principle of its existence. The main assembly space had the circular configuration they designed, with perfect sightlines and beautiful color contrast. The art studio featured Jamie's mirror system and adjustable lighting. The cafeteria used visual indicators for food stations. The library celebrated both visual and written storytelling. The dedication ceremony was conducted simultaneously in ASL and spoken English, with the interpreters and speakers positioned so neither mode of communication took precedence over the other. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he stood at the podium and signed. 8 months ago, I was rushing through an airport, late and exhausted. When I saw someone who needed help, I almost kept walking. I had every excuse to keep walking. A flight to catch, a son waiting at home, a promise to keep. But something made me stop. He paused, looking at Catherine. That decision to stop, to see someone everyone else was ignoring, changed my life completely. It brought me here, to this building, to this community, to this family. He gestured to Sarah and Jamie. My son taught me that being deaf isn't a deficit. It's a difference. A beautiful, valuable difference. And he taught me that love is the best teacher. If you love someone, you learn their language. All of it. The signs and the silences, the visible and the invisible. Dad, you're getting emotional again. Jamie signed from his seat, teasing. The audience laughed, the sound mixing with the signs of those who expressed amusement visually. The point is, Marcus continued, we built this school on a simple principle. Everyone deserves to be seen, to be heard, whether that's with ears or eyes, to belong not as accommodation but as the design itself, as the foundation, not the addition. I'm grateful to everyone who made this possible, but especially to Catherine, for trusting a stranger at an airport, and to Sarah, for teaching me that the best projects and the best love stories are built when we choose to see each other completely. After the ceremony, as students and families explored their new school, Sarah squeezed Marcus's hand and signed, "Thank you for seeing my mother, for seeing all of us." Marcus signed back, "Thank you for showing me what it means to build a better world." Jamie appeared between them, tugging both their hands. "Can we see my studio again? Ms. Chen from my old school is here and I want to show her." Sarah and Marcus exchanged a look, warm, full of understanding, full of promise. "Come on," Sarah signed, taking Jamie's other hand. "Let's go show everyone your studio." As they walked through the school, Catherine watched from her seat with tears in her eyes. Marcus thought about time, how he'd once measured it in missed flights and broken promises, in the weight of trying to be enough for a child who deserved the world. Now he measured it differently, in the moment he chose to stop in an airport, in the language he'd learned for love, in the spaces they'd built, not just with blueprints and building materials, but with compassion and understanding and the radical act of truly seeing another human being. The best things in life, Marcus had learned, came from the moments when you chose to stop rushing, when you chose to see someone everyone else ignored, when you chose to sign hello to a stranger and discovered you were signing hello to your future. 3 years later, Marcus and Sarah stood in the completed Hartwell Institute satellite office in Marcus's hometown. Jamie, now 15, was leading a tour for visiting architecture students, signing confidently about accessible design principles, while a translator voiced his words for those who needed it. The school they'd designed together had won international awards. More importantly, it had sparked a movement. Schools across the country were reaching out, wanting to learn how to design spaces that truly celebrated all students. Marcus and Sarah had gotten married in a ceremony conducted entirely in ASL, with Catherine beaming in the front row and Jamie serving as best man, signing a toast about how his dad had finally learned that the best things in life come from stopping, from seeing, from choosing connection over convenience. They'd started a foundation, offering scholarships to deaf students pursuing architecture and design. The first recipient was a young woman who'd been in the first class at their school, who'd written in her application, "This building taught me that I don't need to change to fit the world. We can build a world that fits all of us." As Marcus watched Jamie lead the tour, Sarah's hand in his, Catherine chatting with visitors in the corner, he thought about that November day at O'Hare, about the choice to stop, about the business card pressed into his palm, about how the smallest acts of compassion could create ripples that changed everything. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah signed. "About airports, about stopping, about how lucky I am that I almost missed my flight that day." Sarah smiled. "We're all lucky you stopped. My mother, me, Jamie, all the students who'll learn in buildings we design together, all the families who'll find spaces where they belong. I was just doing what anyone should do, but they don't. That's the point. That's always been the point." She squeezed his hand. "You chose to see, and that choice changed everything." In the crowd, a young father was helping his deaf daughter explore the building's tactile elements, signing patiently as she asked questions. Marcus watched them, saw himself and Jamie from years ago, and felt the circle complete. Compassion wasn't just a virtue, it was a language, and when you chose to speak it, when you chose to stop and truly see another human being, you didn't just change their life. You changed your own. You changed the world. One stopped moment at a time.